In brief, I bought Sony over-the-ear noise-canceling wireless headphones in 2016. Reviews said they had excellent audio quality and superior noise canceling to Bose. I love them and still use them. Connecting to any device was a bit clunky, but once connected, they worked great. Following Apple's quote-unquote brave removal of the headphone jack, I purchased Sony wireless noise-canceling earbuds in 2019, the same year the AirPods Pro debuted. The Sony headphones sucked. I had to download 2 separate apps to connect the headphones to my iPhone and to control noise canceling and other features. Half the time I switched back to wired headphones because the connection was so unreliable. What an awful experience. A year later, I purchased AirPods Pro. The connectivity and management of noise canceling features was night and day different. Why couldn't the Sony earbuds be controlled from the Bluetooth menu like the AirPods? Did Sony build a bad product? Did their software suck? Or did Apple disadvantage them? My wife is an avid runner. Over the past few years, she purchased a $300 Garmin smartwatch and later a $600 Garmin smartwatch. She runs every day and maybe uses the Garmin watch once a week. Connectivity issues with the iPhone also limited her enjoyment of a premium product. I bought her an Apple Watch this past Christmas, and she now wears it every day. When I asked why, she said it stays connected to her phone much better and manages texts and calls as a breeze. Again, is Garmin building a bad product, or are they being disadvantaged by Apple? I don't know the answer to these questions, but I think they're worth asking. My MacBook connects to the various wireless printers I've had over the last 11 years far more easily than my PC work laptops have. I think this is a great example of Apple's it just works approach. Their iPhone experience has been much different. It just works as long as it's connecting to an Apple device. I tend to align with Ben on this particular DOJ case, but I think there's a stronger argument to be made for Apple leveraging iPhone success into other markets by advantaging its own products. So Ben, what do you think of the dynamics there?
So just a wonderful email in multiple respects, in part because it gets to some of the tensions with Apple, but he also brings up printers. So I agree the printer situation is much better than it's ever been. And part of this was Apple introducing like a universal printer sort of driver sort of thing. So you have to do something independent and making printer manufacturers sort of work with it. That was an aggregator really doing a good job, like forcing people onto a standard. At the same time, has anyone never not complained about their printer, right? It speaks to the real tension in this case. To me, this is I could argue every side of this case by myself for hours. I'm not sure how interesting that podcast would be, but it would be an interesting sort of challenge.
You just ran through your legislative solutions by yourself for about 30 minutes. So yeah, I believe in you.
I'm sorry. Are you? I'm sorry, Andrew. I'm trying to be more interactive here.
Here we are.
No, the problem was you gave me homework for this one, and so if I did the homework, you're going to see the whole list. Okay. So okay. So here's the fundamental tension. I'm the most worried about this API issue, and AI, I think, is really bringing it to the forefront. Okay. Mm-hmm. Like the issue is that take like a voice assistant. I think there's just any voice assistant that is an app. The more we get into this sort of real time sort of feedback and interaction, the more these limitations that come from being a third party on top of an Apple platform are going to cut. They're going to sting. You have to open the app. You have to get there. You can't just invoke it. Even if you have a device, is that device going to stay connected consistently? Is it going to be latencies? They're going to be lag. And I think it's going to mean a real retardation in the development of this market because you don't have the sufficient access to the phone, which is the device that is still going to be with you all the time. And this is going to be, I think the market's just going to suck because Apple will not make the APIs available for third-party devices or third-party applications to have the sufficient sort of interaction that will make them really compelling and useful. And we're just going to be stuck with, I hope Apple makes Siri good. Like, is that a future we want? Do we want our dependency on truly useful AI to be gated by Apple's Siri capabilities?
Or who is going to split the proceeds with Apple and partner with them?
Yeah, well, Gemini, I have Gemini thoughts as well. So to me, this is like, say, I talked about that Rabbit R1 device, right? That was at CES, right? Mm-hmm. going to be a crappy device, I'm sure. I think actually the shipping deadline might have passed. I don't know, whatever.
No, but I mean, we've had a lot of fun talking about the different form factors
right.
that we might see.
Yeah, like Meta's Ray-Ban glasses, right?
Is going to be dependent on Apple.
The Meta Ray-Ban glasses are really compelling. This idea that they can see and you can talk to them, like it's a really compelling use case that is possible technologically today, but it would be a gazillion times better if it had low-level access to your phone, so that I had that always-on connection and the latency would be much lower and all those sorts of things. And realistically, Facebook almost has to ship an accompanying phone with the glasses, and the phone can be purely bog standard, right?
And by the way, Mark Zuckerberg has been explicit about that, because I was sort of wondering, well, like, could this be a replacement for the phone long term? And he gave an interview to Morning Brew, I believe, like a couple months ago, and he was like, yeah, this is going to operate with the phone. We don't see it as a successor piece of hardware, at least in this generation.
Yeah,
so
why would you try to do stuff the phone already does? Yeah, because the phone is good at so many things. What we're trying to do is do new stuff. And the problem with Apple limiting all this access to APIs is that it completely retards the market. Like there's nothing's going to happen. We're going to be dependent on Apple doing crap like Siri that they suck at. Okay? That's not great. It's a huge concern. The flip side is, and this goes back to the printer bit, is that any sort of standardization sort of approach is just always going to kind of suck, right? This is like what Apple is so good at because they internalize everything. And, API development is not super, like you make an API and it's not quite right. And you have to always change it. You do have to XYZ. When it's internal to yourself, you have so much more flexibility in changing it and getting it to work just right. Because if you break it, who's hurt by it? You are. So you can figure out how to solve it and get at the issues, right? Once an API is public, you now have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of developers dependent on that API. And every change you make is dramatically painful and disruptive. And by the way, if you change it too much, you're probably going to get a regulator yelling at you. Oh, you're just trying to preface yourself. No, I'm trying to make it better. Like making something public ossifies it. And that's a big problem when you're trying to do aggressive product development, right? It is like you're sort of locking yourself in. So there's a really, really strong trade-off here. I think Apple's integration is a big deal. Could they make things better for other watches and other headphones? Yes. Do they preference themselves? Absolutely. Is that preferencing also a function of it's just hard to work with standards and public APIs, and you can really push forward faster if you do it yourself? Also, absolutely, right? And so this is a really hard one. I've been thinking a lot about this. I think there's something along, and it's hard to, like, the problem with this is to write legislation that could really handle this would have to be so subtle in like sort of understanding the issues at a deep level.
Now I'm going to trust Congress.
That's right. Now I'm doing your part. Well, no. Okay. So be clear. I don't trust Congress generally at all. I'm with you. The difference is I don't think the answer is to try to twist antitrust law into something that it isn't. That's my whole thing, right? So, yeah. Let me finish. So,
okay,
maybe there's something like if you have an API that is used for like that is used to sell an accessory or enter a third-party market like headphones or watches, those APIs have to be made available to competitors within 24 months or 12 months or whatever it might be. I think having a lag is reasonable because you need to figure it out. You might make changes. And number two, that's an incentive to keep inventing, right? Because to stay ahead. Like you have an advantage by keeping doing it, right? I'm fine with Apple having better AirPods in 2017. But by 2019, competitors should be able to deliver a comparable experience to the extent the experience is dependent on APIs that Apple's keeping private to themselves. Now, like I said, this one gets pretty hairy in how it would actually be written, implemented, and I do worry a lot that it would actually kill invention and innovation. But at the same time, I'm very, very concerned about the extent to which the iPhone platform is a tremendous barrier to any sort of innovation sort of going forward, and particularly because of Apple's approach in this way. But that's so basically I have two things for each. For aggregators, it's acquisitions and contracts, and for platforms, it's side-loading third-party installations and making APIs publicly available. Those would be my sort of focus areas.